The woman, the village couldn't stop watching. There is a village that sits where 3 rivers meet, deep in the forest where the silk cotton trees grow so tall their tops disappear into cloud. The people call their home Udara, and they are a people who know how to celebrate beauty. But even in a village that loved beauty, Amara was something different. She was the kind of beautiful that made people stumble. Market women forgot their change. Young men forgot their names. Even the oldest grandmother in Udara once paused at the sight of her and whispered, "The gods were showing off the day they made that one." Amara knew it. She had always known it. And once a person truly knows their power, the temptation to misuse it becomes a daily battle. Amara had stopped fighting that battle a long time ago. She lived alone in the compound her parents had left her, courtyard always swept, water pot always full, not because she worked hard, but because young men competed for the right to serve her, hoping for nothing more than a smile. She rarely smiled. Every morning began at the large mirror in the corner of her bedroom, framed in dark wood carved with birds in flight. She stood before it until it confirmed what she needed, that her skin still glowed its deep bronze, that her eyes were still bright, that nothing had been borrowed from her face while she slept. Only then would she begin her day. She refused to sit with the women at the grinding stone. She refused to join the evening gatherings. She walked through the market with her chin tilted upward, as though doing it a favor by passing through. The women had a saying they spoke only in whispers. She is a beautiful pot with a crack at the bottom, perfect until you pour something into it. It was a Wednesday market day when everything changed. Amara was leaving the market, best green wrapper, hair wound high, ivory beads bright at her neck, when at the crossroads where the market path meets the forest road, an old woman shuffled out from the shadow of a neem tree. Her name was Lolo Necker. Ancient in the way certain trees are ancient, not fragile, but dense with time, every line on her face a ring of lived years. She wore a faded wrapper and carried a basket of herbs. She walked with a stick that clicked against the earth with each step. She did not see Amara until the last moment. Her stick caught on a root. She stumbled. As she threw out her arm to catch herself, the dry grass on her herb basket brushed against Amara's green wrapper, leaving a faint streak of dust across the fine fabric. Lolo Necker steadied herself and pressed her palms together at once. "Eneni, forgive me," she said gently. "I did not see you. My old eyes, please, forgive an old woman." She reached out to dust off the mark. Amara stepped back. She looked at the streak on her wrapper. Then she looked at Lolo Necker, the way a person looks at a thing, not a human being, and what came out of her mouth was this: "Don't touch me. Look at what you have done. Stay out of the road if your eyes cannot serve you anymore. Useless old woman." The crossroads went completely silent. A woman with a tray of groundnuts stopped walking. 2 men paused mid-conversation. A small child pressed her face into her mother's wrapper. Lolo Necker lowered her outstretched hand slowly. She did not look hurt. She did not look angry. She looked at Amara with something patient and certain and deep, like a person who already knows how a story ends. "My daughter," she said quietly, "the things we are most proud of are the things most easily taken. Guard your tongue. It is sharper than you know." Then she adjusted her basket, clicked her stick against the earth, and walked away down the forest road without looking back. Amara hissed, smoothed her wrapper, and walked home. That night Amara slept soundly and woke to the first cockerel crowing in the grey pre-dawn. She rose and went to the mirror. As she always did. She looked in. The sound that came out of her was not quite a scream, something smaller and more broken. A short, sharp gasp, like a person struck without warning. She pressed her face close to the glass, stepped back, moved to the window to use the morning light, returned to the mirror. It was still there. The change, undeniable. Her skin had turned ashen and dull. as though something beneath it had simply gone out. The brightness in her eyes was replaced by something flat and frightened. Her lips were dry and cracked at the corners. She splashed water on her face. Nothing changed. She worked shea butter into her skin with shaking hands until her palms ached. She rewrapped her hair. She changed her cloth. She looked in the mirror one last time. Then she sat down on the floor of her bedroom and did not get up for a very long time. For 7 days she did not leave the compound. She sent no word to anyone. She sat with what had happened, turning it over in her mind, looking for its meaning, and slowly, painfully, she began to understand. The old woman's words came back to her again and again. The things we are most proud of are the things most easily taken. On the 8th day, hunger made the decision for her. She had to go out. She had to face the village without the armor she had always worn. It was the hardest thing she had ever done. Part 4. The long season of learning. Without her beauty opening doors, Amara discovered something that humbled her to the bone. No one owed her anything. The young men stopped coming. The market women passed her by. She was, for the first time in her adult life, simply a person. A person who carried her own water, worked her own fire, and knelt fully before elders, both knees, both hands, head bowed, and waited for their blessing before rising. The first time she knelt before old Papa Chakwuma in the village square, her pride fought so hard against it her knees shook. But she knelt, and the old man placed his hand gently on her head and said, "Rise, my daughter, and go well." Something in Amara cracked open, not in a way that hurt, but the way a seed cracks open in dark soil before it becomes something living. She learned to pound yam. Her hands grew stronger. She stopped minding the work. She sat with the women at the grinding stone one evening and discovered, to her complete surprise, that they were funny, deeply funny, and wise. Their evening conversations were richer than anything she had imagined from the outside. She started showing up. Then came the afternoon that changed her completely. A young mother named Chisholm came running to her compound in the pouring rain. Her infant pressed to her chest, the child's breathing shallow and wrong. Her husband was in the farm. The healer's compound was on the other side of the village. There was no one else nearby. Amara did not think. She stepped forward, took the small child from Chisholm's arms, pressed the baby against her own chest, and ran, through the mud, through the rain, wrapper-soaked and feet slipping, all the way to the healer's compound. The healer worked quickly. The fire was stoked. Herbs were prepared. The baby survived. Chisholm held Amara's hands afterward, both of them dripping and breathless, and looked at her with wet eyes. "You are a good woman, Amara. I have never been able to say that to you before, but today, you are a good woman." Amara walked home that evening with mud caked on her good wrapper and not a single thought about it. One morning, weeks later, she woke and realized she had not looked in the mirror in 11 days. She stood in the doorway and looked at it across the room, the wooden frame, the carved birds in flight, and felt nothing urgent.
No desperation.
No fear. She turned away from it and started her morning. 3 full months after the crossroads, Amara went to the edge of the forest to gather firewood. She had come to love the early morning forest, the coolness before the sun rose fully, the birds singing the world awake, the smell of earth and leaves. It had become her thinking place, her quiet place. She bundled what she could carry, lifted it to her head, and started back down the path. She had gone perhaps 100 steps when she heard it, the slow, deliberate click of a walking stick on the packed earth behind her. She turned. Lolo Necker was coming down the same path. On the old woman's head was a bundle of firewood so large it seemed impossible, 3 times the size of Amara's own, piled high and wide. The old woman moved at a careful crawl, one hand gripping her stick, the other pressed against a tree for balance. Her breathing was audible from a distance, slow and effortful, each step its own quiet struggle. Amara stood still on the path. The old instinct rose briefly. Look away, keep moving, pretend you did not see. She let that instinct pass through her like smoke. Then she set down her bundle, walked back up the path, stepped up beside Lolo Necker, and without a word, without asking permission, without thinking about the weight or her shoulders or anything at all, she reached up with both hands and carefully lifted the great bundle of firewood from the old woman's head. She felt the weight settle across her own shoulders. It was very heavy. She did not put it down. She balanced her own bundle alongside it and turned to face the path ahead. "Mama," she said simply, "walk with me. I will carry this. Where are you going?" Lolo Necker looked at her. That same deep, patient look from the crossroads. But now, something else lived in it. Something warm. Something that looked almost like pride. They walked together through the forest path as the sun rose fully and gold light fell thin through the leaves. When they reached the old woman's compound, Amara set both bundles down carefully, dusted her hands, and turned to leave. Lolo Necker reached out and caught her wrist. She placed both palms on either side of Amara's face, cupping it the way a grandmother cups the face of a beloved child, and looked at her for one long, still, wordless moment. Then she spoke, low and sure, like water finding its level. "You came to me in pride, and I let you feel the weight of emptiness. You returned to me in humility, and carried the weight of another. What you lost was never truly yours to keep. But what you have become, this, my daughter, no one can ever take. Go home. Rest well. Let the morning bring what it brings." She lowered her hands. Amara bowed, a full, proper bow, both palms pressed together, head lowered, and walked home through the open morning. That evening Amara cooked a proper meal and ate slowly in her courtyard as the sun went down. A neighbor's child wandered in without asking and leaned against her arm, watching the fireflies rise from the grass. Amara put her arm around the child and watched with her. She slept that night like a person who has finished a very long journey and finally, found rest. In the dark blue hour before the cockerel crowed, she woke without knowing why. The room was quiet. Something felt different, not wrong, but full, like the air just before rain arrives. She rose. She did not reach for the mirror. She started the fire, set the pot, fetched water from the courtyard. It was only when the sun came fully through the window, when the compound was bright and the morning birds were loud, that she walked back into the bedroom for a cloth and past the mirror. And stopped. The face looking back was hers. The glow had returned. The brightness in her eyes. The smooth fullness of her skin. All of it, back, and more alive than she had ever seen it. But that was not the thing that held her there with her hand pressed over her mouth. It was the expression. For years she had looked into this mirror and seen a face that was beautiful the way a mask is beautiful, perfect and closed and cold, keeping everything out. The face she saw now was open, warm, the kind of face that draws people close rather than holding them at a distance, the kind that carries a story in its eyes, a story of something that was broken and chose to be remade. She reached out and touched the glass softly with 2 fingers. Then she laughed. Not the short, controlled laugh she had once used like a door she could open and close. A real laugh, full and open and bright, spilling out of her and into the compound, scattering the sparrows from the mango tree and rolling out into the morning street. Her neighbor called across the path, "Amara, what has happened to you this morning?" "Nothing," she called back, already moving toward the door, still laughing. "Come and eat with me. I am cooking for 2 today. Please subscribe, like and comment for more interesting stories."